Welcome to Business Reporter's Future of Banking and FinTech campaign. I'm Rachel Hicks. COVID-19 has forced banks and financial institutions to speed up their digital transformation in many different areas. One of those areas is the management of customer interactions. Since COVID-19 hit, many people have been concerned about their finances and wanted quick, reliable answers to their questions about their savings, loans and investments. At the same time, they've grown wary of the danger of catching and spreading the virus. If banks want to remain successful, trusted providers, they need to be available to customers, however that customer chooses to engage, in branch or remotely. And making things more complex is that additional task of making it all as safe as possible for people, their money and their data. How is that possible? Well, that's what we're going to discuss with John Federman, CEO from JRNI. Good morning, John.
Morning.
How has COVID affected business globally?
Well, I think it's affected all of us, personally and professionally. In the professional world, it has changed how we interact. It has changed where and when and in what context we have conversations. And in so many ways, it's reminded us that there's so much we can accomplish while still being mindful of safety.
So the popular belief has been that most engagement with customers has moved online. Why have banks continued to invest heavily in face-to-face engagement then?
Well, when you're talking about people's money, people's finance, you're talking about something that has ramifications that go well beyond a pandemic. And you're talking about something that's as personal as it could be. And the implications are as far-reaching for someone's future and stability and security as it could be. So when we think about the pandemic and we're thinking about what has changed, we also have to think about what's the same. And so many of the things I described about the role of each person's own finances is exactly the same. Meaning that you want, as a consumer, you want the comfort of face-to-face. You want the security of knowing who you're dealing with. You want to feel confident in not just the financial services institution with whom you're partnering, but with the associate with whom you're dealing. So all of that lends itself to what we're seeing as a really accelerated hybrid experience. One that isn't a pure face-to-face, but rather enabled by technology around things that are important right now. Staying safe, keeping distant, doing so in a way that is considerate of people around you and mindful of your own health concerns.
So what kind of challenges does this increase in appointments pose for banks?
Well, having appointments and having a bad experience is worse than not having appointments. So it's creating a structure and a way of doing business that's comfortable, that's scalable, and that's most importantly safe.
So what's at stake for banks when it comes to customizing appointments?
Well, it's no different than pre-pandemic, and that is that every experience, every interaction is brand building. A bad experience creates that perception that the bank doesn't have their act together, that they're out on an edge doing things that they've not done before. By creating an infrastructure that is smooth, that communicates fully, that feels as though there's both security in terms of the health concerns, but all the things that financial services institutions needed to represent before the pandemic in terms of security, that those things are there too. So creating a platform and offering that platform to consumers that inspires confidence and builds brand rather than detracts from brand is the biggest challenge in deploying appointments at scale.
So how does JRNI help banks customize interactions with their clients?
It's that because of what's happened with the pandemic, and it's also important to note, JRNI had a robust business before the pandemic because folks were really looking to maximize their time and engage with their financial services institutions in ways that are most comfortable to them, meaning that their quote unquote front door could be virtual, it could be physical. What that consumer expected and ultimately demanded was that that brand experience was consistent. And so where we see the pandemic playing a role is to hasten this, not to change it, but to hasten it. And I'll give you an example. We've got a global leading financial services partner. And prior to the pandemic, they were doing roughly 7,000 appointments enabled by our system in a month, meaning that there was an appointment set up online. That appointment included a front end, what we call JRNI, which asked the questions. Are you here for a mortgage? Are you here for personal wealth management? What are you looking for? So that the specialist could be assigned that could appropriately understand the requirement. That financial services institution prior to the pandemic did, as I say, roughly 7,000 appointments a month. This past month, they did 200,000 of these appointments. Now, let's be clear. We're also offering virtual appointments, meaning a total virtual experience. But these 200,000 appointments I'm describing were ones that were initiated online via the platform, scheduling the right person in the right location with the right specialty. But those appointments actually were conducted in person. So what that consumer understood when the appointment was set up was that the financial services institution takes their health, their safety seriously, meaning that intrinsic to that appointment would be social distancing, would be cleaning in between appointments, would be creating the infrastructure that that consumer felt safe from beginning of the experience, which was digital, to the culmination of the experience, which was physical in the appointment.
Clearly, there's a variety of different appointments that can be offered. Can you give us a few examples that illustrate the versatility of the system?
Sure. I mean, the system itself can act as a tool for the financial services institution, meaning understanding how to staff at various branch locations by dint of requirements, by appointment volume. It also creates for the consumer the ability to make sure that you're getting to the right associate who's expert at what you're looking for. So the personalization is, of course, where the financial services institution will know the name, but moreover, through complex connections with customer relationship management systems, for instance, by the time that appointment happens, that associate knows who they're dealing with, they've prepared appropriately, they've created an engagement that's personal and relevant, and therefore saves time and creates less friction. So the value of creating a personalized experience is that the transaction rate goes up tremendously. We see the stats support that where there's personalization, the success that that consumer reports back is up by like 80%. They enjoy the experience more, they're more likely to transact, and they're more likely to engage and come back, therefore demonstrating loyalty.
The pandemic has increased our need for safety to unprecedented levels. So how does JRNI help banks meet the increased need for customer safety?
Yeah, every customer of JRNI's, whether it's a financial services institution, a retailer, whatever their industry, they each have their own definition of how they're going to create an environment that's safe. Whether that's occupancy management, whether that's managing a virtual queue, so folks wait outside in their cars, for instance, before coming in. whether it's a cleaning time or schedule in between meeting rooms or conference rooms. Those are all fed into the system. So if, for instance, the average appointment will take 45 minutes, and you know as a bank branch operator that you're going to want 15 minutes in between appointments to sanitize and to make sure that the environment is one where social distancing can be guaranteed and the right kind of sanitation for the environment can take place, then you simply build your appointment schedule that way. So all of those parameters of time of appointment, time in between appointments, occupancy management in terms of the entire branch, staffing, making sure that you have an appropriate staff ratio. In some municipalities, some governments, certain transactions in the banks require 2 associates to be in the room, 1 to act as witness. All of that's built into the system, and therefore the staffing is also a component of how that experience is created and then managed to guarantee safety, frankly, on both sides, for the associate and for the consumer.
So can you give us a case study of the impact JRNI has been able to make on a client's operations?
Yeah, I think the most telling is that a leading global financial services institution, when I say leading, top 5, has moved JRNI from being a tier 3 provider to a tier 1 provider. And what that means is that the channel itself has become so significant that it's become a strategic imperative that as banks embrace omni-channel, that nothing's sort of left behind, that the consumer experience, again, shouldn't be defined by the channel in which communication is initiated or ultimately happens, but that the consumer experience is defined by the brand. And that is consistent whether it's an all online experience for a virtual appointment, whether it's a hybrid, meaning that the appointment is booked online and happens in person, whether it's an event that's either virtual or in person, meaning a seminar on mortgage strategies or some other initiative. The point is that the lessons we've learned, and we've learned it as we've all embraced omni-channel at a hastened pace because of COVID, is that 1, transactions and finance and business has had to find a way to keep moving. And that 2, people are only going to engage in these transactions if they're feeling safe and comfortable.
So how easily and quickly can a bank integrate JRNI's solution?
Well, we're a SaaS platform, a software as a service platform, meaning that the difference is versus a traditional on-prem or on-premises platform, we constantly evolve the platform and deliver those updates to each consumer seamlessly, each of our customers seamlessly. And so ultimately, based on the complexity of the integration, that's going to define how long it takes. So for instance, we have many banking customers that can literally get up and running in a matter of days, meaning that we've got an API-based system that can integrate pretty easily with the existing systems of record for financial services institutions. Of course, as the requirements become more complex, as the integrations become more and more technically challenging, the time can take a little bit longer. But the quick answer is, if someone wants to get up and running on an appointment system, on a scheduling platform, and use the JRNI platform to do so, it's just a matter of days.
So how do you think our experience during the pandemic will impact customers' interactions in the long run?
I think that at the end of the day, people are people, and they're going to gravitate towards what they're most comfortable with. And what the pandemic has done is opened up opportunities that perhaps some consumers hadn't explored before. And in some of those cases, they're going to stick with it. They're going to like the ease of setting an appointment. They're going to like the opportunity to do it virtually. They're going to like the opportunity to understand before they walk into a bank branch that they've already identified and secured time with the associate who's most relevant, has the experience in what that consumer is looking to accomplish. So I think there's a lot of lessons to be learned from the pandemic experience. The most important is that nothing that we're talking about is necessarily revolutionary from what we were thinking about 18 months ago. I think what we're going to see is that it happened more quickly because of the pandemic, and more people were exposed to it, and there'll be a percentage of people who are exposed to it that are going to embrace it long term.
John Federman from JRNI, thank you very much for sharing your thoughts with us this morning.
My pleasure. Thank you for the time.